going on, everybody? It's been about 6 weeks since I've made a video. I did not stop making guitars in that time. I actually got a commission guitar build, and so I've been working on my computer-aided design drawings. I'm doing some CNC work, and this is where I'm at. This is the same body shape that I used for the Great Guitar Build-Off 2021, except this time using CNC to do a lot of the work and make sure that all of the dimensions are precise. And so right now what I'm doing is I've sanded the body to about 120, 150 grit, and I've got the binding and everything else on here. And so the next thing I'm going to do is do some contrasting grain filling. The back here is Sapele, which itself, looks really great. It's an open pore wood. When you put a clear finish on it, it starts to get a goldish, brownish, reflective sort of property to it. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take some black grain filler and fill it in to increase the contrast. I've done this on another guitar that was actually not successful, but it looks really sharp, adding that just a little bit of extra contrast and popping the grain out. And so that's what I'm going to do here. As I said, this body's been sanded. I haven't spent too much time worrying about, the exact grit. The biggest thing is just to make sure that everything is smooth. You don't want to have any, like 80 grit, sanding scratches that are real deep, because then you'll fill them with, the grain filler. And what I'll do is I'll go over this the first time, and then what I'm going to do is sand off the grain filler, take a look at what it looks like. If I see anything that looks like a filled sanding scratch, I'll go back a second time, kind of sand that out, do it again. But I don't anticipate doing more than 2 coats of grain filler for this body. So what I have here is just a takeout container. You can see I've actually used this one for this black grain filler before, and it comes in a very thick paste. And so what I'm going to do is add a little bit of water to it. This is water-based grain filler, wood putty, sanding sealer, crack filler. They say it can be used for a lot of things. And so what I'm going to do is kind of put this into a consistency of like pancake batter, maybe even a little thinner, so that when I spread it out here, it spreads easily instead of caking up. Because of course, once this dries, I need to go back and actually sand this off. And so the more I leave on the body when it's drying is just the more sanding I have to do later. What's great about using water-based grain filler is, even though this tray was a little bit crusty before, when those pieces break off, they dissolve in water, and so I don't have to worry about, getting any pasty bits or anything in there. It's all going to, work out fine. And in fact, you can put back, any leftover back in the container. I don't actually do that because I don't want to contaminate the container. It seems, grain filler is not that expensive relative to, putting sawdust or something back in there, but you could if you wanted to. So I've worked this in for about 5 minutes, and, it has this kind of, let's see if I can get that, it has this kind of gloppy, consistency to it. And so, what I'm going to do now is just, I save my my health insurance cards, when I switch companies or whatever, and these end up working great, and I'll use this to just kind of go across the grain that way. The other thing you might notice is I haven't actually taped off the top or anything. Maple is a closed pore wood, so it doesn't need to be grain filled. And I also have this the black binding strip here, and so I'm not too concerned. If I were to get any on here, I can sand it off. so it's just a lot easier to not mask it off. And so, like I said, all I'm going to do is really dump this off and spread it around. You can already see it's starting to dry. That's one of the positives that you have with water-based grain filler is a pretty short open time. This will dry in maybe 15 or 20 minutes, though I'll likely let it sit for longer as I go back to work. With all this green filler smoothed out, I'll let this dry. Like I said, it'll dry maybe 15, 20 minutes. It'll likely be an hour or two before I come back just because I'm going to go back to work. The green filler has had a good long time to dry. I've already gone on the sides with my spindle sander and sanded off the green filler there. And so now what I'll do is I'll sand this off, take a look, probably have to do a little bit of hand sanding too, and then see if I see any scratch marks that were grain filled, and if so, then I'll have to go back and do this a second time. So with the 150 grit, I've gone and done the flat portion of the back here, and it's a really subtle, a really subtle highlight. Let's see if I can get it in the camera here. But what ends up happening is the black stays in the pores, and then of course where you're sanding it and it's flat, you're having the wood grain. And then when I put some finish on this, it's really going to pop because now you'll have a lot of black dots with the grain pattern. You'll have the brown wood and it looks good. Now for the sides, I could use the power sander, but then it's going to look weird because it'll have flat spots. And so I'll actually go back, sand this by hand, and then I'll make my final determination about whether or not I need to do a second coat. So I've sanded with my spindle sander. I've gone over this with my, some more scratches. I'm not quite done yet with the scratches, but this is really just to even out the sanding coat. And so now what I can do is take naphtha, which is effectively just lighter fluid. Since that's not water-based, I can wipe the whole guitar down, get most of the dust off of it without ruining the grain fill I just did. So that's it. Here's what the finish looks like. I might not be able to really catch it on camera here, but you know, the pores are now filled in with black pore filler, and it just adds, you know, just slightly more interest to, you know, what's already a pretty interesting, you know, piece of sapele. So that's it. Thanks for watching. And in a future video, I've got to go back, of course, and do more finish sanding. But I can't wait to dye the top of this quilted maple and show you what this guitar body is going to look like. So thanks for watching.